What's good, y'all? Anderson Emerald here to talk about Quincy Wilson, as we recently saw that it was announced he'll be attending the University of Maryland in the fall of 2026. And this ended what was a pretty exciting process, I'd say, for both Quincy and the public as well, because he visited multiple schools and he ultimately narrowed things down to a top five. You had Maryland, USC, Texas A&M, South Carolina, and UCLA. Now, many probably saw Maryland as a bit of an outlier and a surprise, as Maryland is just not seen as a powerhouse track and field program, considering the men don't even have an indoor program anymore. I think it was cut in 2012. And outdoors, from what I looked, they haven't scored at the NCAA championships since 2006. But I personally saw this as a very, very much needed kind of long-term play for Quincy to kind of allow him to focus on preparation for the 2028 Olympic Games, where I think he's going to be one of the faces for track and field. Sydney, Gabby, Noah, Tara, Quincy might be in that conversation. But going to a larger school, right, it arguably would have put too much emphasis on his NCAA career, which may have taken away from those Olympic ambitions. You can go check out my full video for, my thoughts on that. But outside of all the factors, one discussion and one comment that kept coming up was that Quincy going to Maryland would not have any high quality training partners to really push him, whether it's in training and competition or whatever. And in most cases, I don't know, I think this would make sense, as it's probably very beneficial to have training partners at least close to your ability to push you, motivate you, and practice every day, all that. But after looking back and thinking back through history, I realized there is a very good example of a high quality athlete who was dominant in the youth and junior levels and went on to continue dominating in the NCAA, and actually went even beyond that without training partners who were anywhere close to his level. Let's look at Kirani James, y'all. In the fall of 2009, Kirani James of Grenada, he joined the University of Alabama, and he was one of the best 400-meter sprinters in the world. He won the World Youth 2009 World Youth 200 and 400 double, and he ran a personal best of 45.24 seconds to win that 400-meter gold, which was the fifth fastest youth time in history at that point. Of course, youth is U18 as it's called now. Now, though Alabama in general is and was always a high quality school and has produced some of the top sprinters throughout history. You look at Dream Richards from Trinidad and Tobago. You have Samuel Ghazi from Nigeria. You have DeAndre Batson, right? There's a couple, decent examples over the past 10 years. When Kirani actually attended, the 400 meter quality specifically was nowhere near the top level, which kind of is mirroring what Quincy is going to be facing when he goes to Maryland. In Kirani's first ever indoor 400 for Alabama in February 2010, he ran 45.76 seconds, which destroyed the school record of 46.46 set all the way back in 1999. Currently, Maryland has an indoor record of 46.91 set in 2019, while Quincy Wilson's indoor personal best is 45.66. Outdoors, Alabama's record was 45.12 set all the way back in 1978. Kirani took that down multiple times, running 44.80 indoors and 44.86 outdoors while he was in the NCAA. Right now at Maryland, outdoor school record 46.17 set in 1997. That's over 2 seconds slower than Quincy Wilson's 44.10, which he ran in July of 2025. So clearly, you can see kind of the basic parallels of Kirani entering Alabama compared to Quincy entering Maryland, and the marks that they, both put up and what they'll be going up against, all that, right, for Quincy. But that's maybe getting a little ahead of things, right? While at Alabama, Kirani James, during his 2010 indoor season, he was consistently running 45 and 46 seconds in the 400. The next fastest guys on the team at Alabama were running 48 and 49 seconds at best. This was the same situation in 2011 indoors when Kirani jumped down to 44 seconds, and 45 consistently, right? The rest of his teammates were still running 48 seconds, right? 48 seconds or slower. This remained the same outdoors, both years, 2010 and 2011. Kirani, he was running 44s and 45s, cruising, but his teammates were running 48s, and at best, one guy got down to 47 mid in 2011. So definitely all due respect. But why is this relevant? Well, this is probably the situation that Quincy will be in going into Maryland, when he joins in the fall of 2026. He's already capable of consistently running 45 seconds indoors and 44 seconds outdoors. And this is even before he completes his, senior year of high school at Bullis, right? Now, it's possible that Maryland will recruit a few different athletes in the 400 who are probably capable of running 46 seconds or better over the next year to join Quincy, right? But it's unlikely that he'll have any truly comparable teammates when it comes to pushing him in a really meaningful way. Think of guys like Michael Norman and Rai Benjamin at USC in 2018, or even Ryan Willie and Emmanuel Bamidele, right? Shout out to Nigeria, or UAE now, at Florida in 2023, or even Houston, 2019, Kamari Montgomery, consistently running 44 seconds. Obi Bokwe, he was running, 45 seconds. He ran 44 seconds once, but not even that idea of having one person running 44s and another one at 45s to consistently push him. I don't think Quincy is going to get that situation. But Kirani James at Alabama, in my opinion, he proved that may not be necessary. Kirani James, he won NCAA titles outdoors in the 400, both in 2010 and 2011. The 2 years he was at Alabama, the 2 years he was at the NCAA. And just 2 months after he won the NCAA title in 2011, he went down to Daegu, South Korea, and won the gold medal at the World Championships in a dramatic, almost photo finish, running down the reigning world and Olympic champion LaShawn Merritt to get him on the line. I think he ran 44.660, and I think LaShawn Merritt ran 44.63. Like, that was a legendary race that Kirani James had just run after 2 consecutive seasons at Alabama in the NCAA without that high quality, competition or, high quality training mates running 46s or 45s or 44s. Nah, guys were running 48 seconds. And a year after those world championships, he went to the Olympic Games and again won the gold medal in the 400, still training at Alabama with his coach. Shout out to Coach Harvey Glantz. Think about it. Harvey Glantz and Kirani, right? They knew that Kirani was very, very special. And despite not having a high quality group of 400 meter guys at Alabama, they were focused on a long-term plan, the long-term goals of the World Championships and the Olympic Games. With the NCAA career, right? That was just a stepping stone towards those goals. Quincy Wilson, in my opinion, is clearly a special talent. I think everyone's opinion, right? And I think Joe Lee and Andrew Vollman at Maryland, they recognize that. And they are very likely looking towards that long-term success and all the things that Quincy can achieve when it comes to World Championships in 2027 and, more importantly, the Olympics in 2028. Now, as I said, I've already shared my thoughts on, his coaching over the next few years, so check out the previous video for all that. But I am very confident that they have a very strong plan set out for Quincy when it comes to him going to Maryland. Now, the final thing I do want to highlight is that Maryland doesn't have an indoor track program for the men. Now, that doesn't mean that Quincy won't be running indoors at all, right? He may just run less frequently than most NCAA athletes at bigger schools who will go to, an SECs or Big 10s or Big 12s or whatever. But I wouldn't be surprised if Quincy has kind of a similar season to what we saw this year in 2025, if not running less, where maybe he runs 3 to 4 open races, maybe 1 to 2 of those are like pro situations, New Balance Indoor Grand Prix, Milrose Games, right? And then just focuses on outdoors where, again, he doesn't have to run as frequently, but he'll have like targeted races and competitions leading up to, conference championships, regionals, and then NCAA championships. Kirani James, literally, while he was at Alabama, he would run a few relays in the early season, then maybe 1 individual race, and then go straight to SEC championships, regionals, and then NCAAs, where, again, he won both of the years he was at Alabama, 2010 and 2011. Now, let's be clear. I am not comparing Kirani James directly to Quincy Wilson, right? Kirani is one individual athlete who went on to have, an insanely successful career, running 43 seconds a trillion times. He won Olympic gold in 2012, silver in 2016, bronze in 2020, and a bunch of world, championship medals in between. It's literally impossible to determine if Quincy will actually have that kind of career. And I'm not even trying to make that direct comparison, as I said. But I do think Kirani's career does provide kind of an example of a 400-meter sprinter who was already one of the best in the world as a youth and junior athlete, went to a school in the NCAA where he basically had no one to push him when it comes to training. But because him and his coach saw his potential for long-term success, knew that he was special, and were still able to train and compete at a high level to lead to an extremely successful NCAA career that didn't take away from his pro career, and if anything supported it, that proves that it is possible, right? No matter what actually does occur, I personally am very excited for Quincy Wilson. I think his time at Maryland is going to go very, very well. Now, anything can happen, but I really do trust the team that he has around him and the people who are making sure that they have his future in their best interest to make sure that he is as successful as possible. Let me know what you think about Quincy Wilson, Kirani James, this kind of little comparison. Do you think we're going to see, some success from Quincy Wilson over the next couple of years? Let me know what you think. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Truly appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching.